we've crossed a threshold here where it's no longer a specialty per se. You just need to have the will and the time to make it happen.
Exactly. And we are, with the new equipment, we're getting closer and closer to being able to travel long distances in a similar amount of time to gas-powered engines. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I go to Washington, D.C. a lot. And I have a bunch of friends, so I'll go visit them. And the first time I did that on my Zero S in 2012, it took me 9 hours. And it's normally a 4.5 hour drive. And I was just planning it. And now I'm only going to have to make 2 stops. And I can charge up almost in 45 minutes now. So I'm only going to have an hour and a half total of charging.
Wow.
And 4 hours of riding. So I should get there in 5.5 or 6 hours.
It's funny because the way we talk about it, it kind of parallels what I've been researching, writing about the automobile and the motorcycle at the turn of the century. It was a very similar deal.
Yeah.
Alexander Winton was the largest automaker in the country, bigger than Ford.
Oh, wow.
Out of Cleveland. Cleveland has its history. Cleveland was almost the Detroit. But a couple of things didn't happen.
Well, right now they're doing better than Detroit. So
yeah, that's true.
Maybe they dodged a bullet on that one.
But so the story goes that as a PR stunt, Winton drove from Cleveland to New York City.
Okay.
800 miles. That was a huge deal. This
right.
was 1898 or something like that, because there were no roads.
And there's not gas stations.
There's no gas
You
stations.
have to put your mind in 1900 or 1898 or whatever, and there were not gas stations everywhere.
Yeah. There was nothing.
There wasn't even electricity everywhere.
So in terms of getting gas, I think he went to hardware stores and bought kerosene or whatever fuel was available.
Yeah.
And it took him, I forget how many hours it took him. It was a momentous thing. And I think 1897 was the first year. Then he didn't get as much PR as he wanted to. Mm-hmm. So he did it again the next year.
Yeah.
And he brought along a journalist from the Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Oh, yeah.
Charles Shanks, who would send in reports every day of the trip.
Oh, okay.
And I am reading that when the second time he did it, when he arrived in New York City, there were 200,000 people greeting him there.
Holy moly.
I have to confirm whether or not that's an actual thing or whether it's just myth at this point.
Yeah. Well, 200,000 people at the turn of the century is very different from 200,000 people now.
Yeah.
Because our population has more than doubled in that 100 years.
Oh, yeah. So
that's very impressive.
It's interesting because they face a lot of, in terms of fuel, they faced a lot of the similar challenges that electric advocates are now facing.
Yeah.
It's probably easier now than it was back then, because at least now we have roads.
Yes.
For one.
Yeah.
In 1903, I believe there were fewer than 200 paved miles in the entire country.
Whoa. Yeah, that was before Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And the highway system
Yep.
and all that.
Yeah,
long before.
Yeah, and actually in 1919, Eisenhower, before he was president, obviously, he led a military convoy across the country, and it took forever.
Yeah.
And that's what gave him the idea for the interstate highway system.
Well, also at that point in history, if we're going to be an actual country, one country on both sides of this massive landmass, we need to be able to communicate and travel across. That is fascinating. And the George Wyman posts that you did, again, he talked a lot about mud, didn't he?
Oh, everywhere.
All the time. Because he wasn't riding on roads. He was riding on mud.
Well, he did half the trip on the railroad track because it was better than riding in sand and mud.
Yeah.
So he basically went from Reno, Nevada to Omaha, Nebraska,
Yeah.
probably most of it on the railroad track. On a bicycle with a motor attached to it, with wooden rims.
Yeah.
Very primitive suspension. His rear suspension was 2 springs on his saddle.
Oh my gosh. The more you think about it, the more wild it is.